Today is Friday, July 19th, 2013, and second part, we have Wolfgang. He's starting this new series called Journey into WX, and this is where he's going to cover basics, basically concepts and stuff, so that when you enter this world of WX coming from another environment, whether this is going to be a replacement tool to what you're doing now or an additional tool, he's going to at least get your thinking straight so that when you dive into this, you don't maybe go off on a deep end thinking the way you did for your previous environment.
Yep.
So here we go, Wolfgang. Thanks for doing this.
Good morning, good afternoon, and evening to everybody. The basic idea behind this series, the wonderful webinars we've had is really good, but I found that there's quite a few of guys in the Skype chat channels and elsewhere who is battling to get to understand WinDev, PcSoft's environment, the IDE, and etc. So I thought just to help the people to get into this environment and get the hang of it is just to create a basic series without too much overhead of all these nice things which get in the way of getting to understand the IDE and the way it works. And then also we've bantered around in the Skype chat that there's Fringlish, or the French English way of doing things and explaining, which causes a bit of other confusions in people's understanding of different things. So I'm trying to just work around all those things and just put together what I experienced when I started off and try and help you to wrap your mind around it. And I think so one of the other things we have to also realize with every new IDE you play around with, there is certain quirks and strengths and weaknesses in anything, and you have to get around that. And I think we get a mindset and say, damn, the thing is not working the way XYZ product is working, instead of looking at it the way they are doing it. And I found that many times that you end up looking at it wrongly in the sense from PcSoft's way. And once you get your head around it, you find it actually, wow, this is actually great stuff. And it actually works very well. So let's start with it basically. And we gonna just trying to get this button clicking. What I thought that we're going to start with the concepts and terminology first. And the way we're going to do the concepts and terminology is just go through what PcSoft mentions about the different things. The main concepts is basically they've got what they call an application, and then they view the application is the program or the executable programs, if you have more than one section to it in your application, and they then break it down into projects. And each project then can be an executable program within your whole application. So example, the application, you might have a web SOAP service sitting on the one side, and then you've got another application which is sitting at your client side. And that's the two applications which is creating your software product. But in the end, you break up the two into different projects. And that's what PcSoft is calling each little piece which you're going to make a resulting executable, the project. So if you've got a SOAP service sitting there, it will be called a project. If you've got a WebDev program running using the web server, that's a project. And within the projects, you also got what we call the analysts. Some other software products call it a dictionary and other names. So the analyst is where your collection of your definitions or basically it contains a description of the files, which is also called tables, and these are the files that contain the data of your application. So then the next part, the terminology is a bit where sometimes I ended up having a bit of a Fringlish moment with them. They tend to call in the analyst the files and each file has a record, and that's quite easy to understand. But when it comes to the item section with the PcSoft, which I understand is basically the column or the fields in each record. So, and that's where I ended up having sometimes a difficulty just to tie it up when I go and look at the documentation. To give you an example, I've brought up their web page, and there's an example of them doing an image control. Then I say the image control can correspond to an item found in the data file. In the beginning stages, I said, what's an item? It didn't quite have clicked to me. So as soon as you understand, wherever you see in their documentation the mention of item, they're actually referring to the column of your record in your database or in the file. So that helped a lot because when I used to read this in the beginning stages, I kind of lost the plot a bit because I didn't understand what they meant by item. And the same when you're doing your SQL statements, you have your items, which is actually your fields or columns inside your records. Okay, then the next thing is the key and indexes. They do it slightly different than most others. The keys are not defined separately from the fields. They kind of put it part of the fields. So don't get confused about that. Just view it as another field, but as a field is not as an integer or a string or a blob or a binary as a key, or then just view it as a key and an index. And it's just part of the rest of the columns in your database. Where if you look at the SQL and even from Clarion or other development environments, they tend to have it in a separate section on a tree or defined separately as a kind of item. Next thing to look at is basically the terminology in the windows and reports. In the windows, they call it all windows, where in most others we do create a procedure and then declare a structure for which represents the windows and that. Whereas WinDev tends to have two separate sections in the IDE where the windows sit and where your actual procedures sit. So don't get confused by the fact that the one lot is defined as windows or reports, and then in a separate section in the ID, which I'll show you now, that is now the function or the procedures. So don't get hanged up about that it's kind of separate in different places. If you're coming from the Clarion world especially, where everything is just a procedure or function, and within it you do your structure of your window or your report. Then WinDev is and WebDev has got a separate nice thing about it. It's called skin templates, which is quite nice. That means you can set up a template which you then style each individual control an item. Just coming back to the control, every object inside your window, like a drop-down table, a button, etc., is called a control in WinDev's terminology. Then the skin template and styles can get applied to it. So you can do an overall on the project a skin template, which then defines how each window looks, and you can apply it to it, which is really great because that allows you to go back down the line. Just changing the skin template, it will change all the controls and window style and look and feel of it.
So that's a global template then? That's so
it's like a global settings you set up in your project.
Oh, per project.
Which is yes, per project. And the style, when we refer to style, it's within the skin template, or you can also override it on a button or on a lower level in the window itself. But it's not a good idea in the sense that if you stick to the skin template and make the changes there and keep it there, which allows you then down the road, for example, change all your buttons look and feel in one shot by changing the skin template. Instead of going back to each window, which a lot of the other IDEs you have to go back to each individually. Okay. Right.
Hey, Wolfgang?
Just
Hal asked a question. He says, can skin templates dynamically change based on condition? Do you know?
Sure, that's a good question. I haven't tried it. Most probably there is a property you can assign to a control, but I'm not too sure on that one. I know in on the 8 tabs you can assign a style or a template to it, but on runtime I'm not too sure on that. I'll have to check that one out.
Well, that's
Customer
not really a
exceeds credit.
skin then. He's saying like customer exceeds credit limit. That's
Yeah.
not really a skin, right?
Yes, in a way, it could be. Example, if you have a total field and you've styled it a certain way, you might want to change it on the runtime that instead of being black or green, then it goes red because it's overdue kind of thing. But I'm not too sure if there's a property or that. I haven't done that yet.
Yes,
I can't give you an answer on that
Stuart's
one.
typing something, so he may have an answer for him.
Yeah, I'm just checking there.
Oh, okay. Stuart says, I'm unclear of the relationship between skin template and style. So can you clarify that?
Okay. 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 Skin templates is your overall, let's call it the palette of your colors you choose when you set it up on the skin template section. Then within the templates, the skin templates, you have then the definitions. I'll show you when we go into our Hello World where it sits. Then you can go and then pick, for example, a button style, and then go and change it by using the skin templates color palettes to change it. The idea behind the color palettes is to set a set of colors up ready for the use, and when you change it, it will change throughout wherever you use those color palettes. I'll show you. I think I'll show you when we get to that
Yeah,
part.
Brian is basically saying templates is a collection of styles.
Yes, yes, yes. And also the palette setup, basically the colors for that. Okay.
Stuart, I hope that helped.
All right.
Cool. All right.
Okay. Is that fine now? Okay. All right. Then just coming back, when you start naming all these things over here, like the window report control and that type of thing, we get into a little kind of entity crisis kind of thing in WinDev because what happens is, example, in the application you can have an entity called customer names, for example, entity. But that customer name entity can correspond to the name of a window control. It can correspond to a name of a report control. It can be the file item or column name itself, or it can even be a variable which you've declared. And that's where we come into the part where WinDev is quite strong in. So they've got what they call a programming charter, which then automatically prefixes the different entities and elements which is found in your project. So if you declare a window and then you end up calling it, say, customer name, it will tend to use a programming chart and put a WIN underscore in front of it. Or if you do a static control on your window, it will then put a STC, which is very handy to have, and it helps you in the beginning stages. I would suggest making sure that you set your programming charter. I'll show you how it's done when you do the whole Hello World. That just helps you get your thoughts and ideas collected, in the sense that you don't get confused with all the different type of items or controls that you can have, entities which got the same names, because we tend to use, for example, in a database, say customer name in a table, a field, or as they call it, as an item. Remember, it's an item in PcSoft for English manuals. Then you end up declaring an edit box, for example, with a customer name also in it. And then eventually it becomes confusing if you start coding which customer name you're referring to. And that's where the programming chart is very handy. And I would suggest when to print it out, I'll show you where to do that, and then have a good look at it before you really start coding, and just that you get a bit of an idea what PcSoft is prefixing each different kind of entity. Then let's start with a very tried and trusted kind of application. It's called Hello World. Nothing much to it. Nothing exciting, but it gets the idea going. Let's go to, let's just close that up. All right, when you open up your WinDev environment, you'll get, let me just get this right. Okay, when you open your WinDev environment, you will have this practically popping up on you. I'm going to just cancel out of that for now, and just on the tools section, let's go to the old-fashioned way. I just want to mention something about making sure the environment. I've noticed they've got two different kind of options, tools, options, and then they call it options of the environment. And I think, where is it one? I'm trying to find it now. Is it this one? Tools. Basically, WinDev comes in two flavors of environment. Let's call it flavors. And it comes back in what we call a simplified environment and a full environment. And sometimes when I've noticed in the beginning stages, I think out of the box it starts off asking which environment you want, and if you ended up picking the simplified environment, then you find out that a lot of the options are hidden away, and I tend to like to have it on a full of options. I'm just trying to find it now. Where's is it this one? Options of the environment. I think I can't find it now. But there is a option here somewhere, which I can't seem to find it now. Which I got caught out in the beginning. When you install it, it goes to what we call a simplified environment first, and then what happens is you don't seem to have all the options, and sometimes when you look at things, then it's kind of missing.
So you're suggesting when you install, don't go with the simplified, go for the full, and then.
I prefer the full one, because then you get to know straight away what's all available, etc. And another thing about PcSoft's environment, nothing is cast in stone. You can always go back and change it again.
If you can find it, right?
And that's the beauty of that. Yeah, if you can find it. I'm trying to see.
Well, you would think that's in the general options of WinDev, right?
Yeah,
You'd think.
I would think so. I'm just trying to find it now. Unless 18 have taken it out. Because it was in version 17 when I had started with them. Okay, it might not be there, so they've removed it altogether from that. It used to be in tools, and if I remember, it was options and environment browser. I'm not too sure myself where it is anymore, but just be aware of it. There's two kind of environments with WinDev. And then the other thing, what I would tend to do first thing is to also go into the tools section and then save your environment, which is like example, if you put Control-Alt-1 and then we'll save this environment, which, say example, you end up messing around and you end up losing the whole setup, you can then put Control-1 and then it'll put it all back to your favorite spot. So to save the environment right off the bat, do Control-Alt-1 at the same time and then save this configuration, and you've got 4 options from Control-1 through to 4, and then save that environment, and then play around with it. And if you want to mess around, and try and mess around, and then save it in option 2, and then once you get the hang of it, you might then pick and choose one that you want. And I found that sometimes you end up, especially the web dev side, I end up having 2 different ones, which if I'm doing reports, I tend to want to have certain planes docked here, and you can say planes, is it this section here? One of these, it's a beauty about WinDev, it's got so much options. Where's the panes? there's all your different paints.
Is that you, Carlos?
Yes, no, I want to say that in options of environment right there, you have a
Okay.
wizard. You got a wizard to restart, the environment that you want to choose. Just restart the wizard for configuring the environment.
Where is it? Tools?
Yes, under the options of environment.
Oh, so you were there. It says you got to do a reset. Where's that?
It doesn't show there. I remember the old version.
Okay, that's right. That's version 18. I don't have 18 yet. I'm sorry. Yeah, you have a wizard that could you restart.
I was a bit caught out, yeah. I myself got caught out with that. Just be aware of it if you're using 17. I've seen that 18 hasn't got it, so it's a bit mute.
It could be that they move it, maybe.
Okay.
All right. That's all.
Okay, go ahead and mute. Yeah.
They could have moved it, but I don't seem to find it. Okay. Coming back to then the panes, one of the things we found that as why is my nothing is working now? Why is it dropped down? It's not working. Let's go back there again. Display. Okay, there we go. Then what I'm trying to say is be aware of the fact that you can end up inadvertently hiding different panes, as I call it, and moving it around and then losing it. My suggestion is just do your Control-Alt-1, save it right off the bat, and then when you do mess up, you just Control-Alt-1, and then you get it back again. So if you end up messing it up, Control-Alt-1, and it just puts everything back into space, which is quite nice. Let's go then and create our first project. That's what I wanted to show you just from that point of view. So you end up usually having this welcome page over here, and there's a create a project button, and you click create a project. We're going to just create a hello world one. As you can see, there's a whole lot of different options we're not going to go in today, and you create the wizard. Let's call it hello world, and you can put it in the subdirectory wherever you want to. You can even have the subdirectory as a different name to what the actual project name is. I'll just click too fast here. You can attach any documents which might be handy for usage. I'll show you where it shows up in your project tree, that you can always have it handy. You can choose an environment you want to develop on. I'm going to do Windows today, 32 or 64-bit. Let's stay with 32. I'm not going to use the source control today. Programming charter. That's where I was talking about it. You can go and then edit this up. My suggestion, hit this print button, print it out, and then just get used to the fact of the different prefixes, and that's a very handy thing. And if you don't like something, which I've done, went out of my own way and changed some of these ones because, like many of us already said, some of this Fringlish stuff, and it doesn't kind of make sense to me. Like example, I ended up changing some of my global variables because I just like the G in front of it instead of all the other fancy stuff. So it's up to you the way you want to use it. And you've got the option to actually edit it and change it. Then you've got the window controls and all the different settings. So do yourself a favor, print it out and just keep it handy. Once you also get the hang of it, like example imng underscore to get to the controller on your window, which is going to be nice when you do window development. Once you get the hang of the prefixes, you actually then the auto-completion feature, it becomes much more useful because you end up hitting the right prefixes straight away and getting to where you want to be. So we're going to use a default program charter here now, and then you choose a style which you want to use, and that's where we were talking about styles earlier on. That's just your look and feel, the way buttons are set up and looked, where again you also can change. We're going to just let's just use that one as example. Next, You can choose your size of the screen settings, which kind of helps you when you populate a new window. It will automatically make it that size, so you know what's the maximum size you're going to want to work with. Let's just leave that as default. Here again, you can do different utilization options. We're not going to go into that today. I'm going to leave that off for now. I'm not going to add a database. You can have a choice of having a database or not having a database, but we're going to just do a hello world. And then you, it wants to make a database, looks like it. Let's just see if I can cancel that of it. That's because I didn't choose the right option here. No database. And the end of the description, and there you go. There's your first project. Then it's going to ask you, do you want to create a window, etc. I'm going to just cancel out of that. And first just show you around a little bit. Earlier on, let's just jump back over here quickly. Once we've, I'm going to just go back here quickly. Then when we're getting into the programming part of it, I'm just going to go quickly in and just set the scene here. In WinDev, it gets kind of a bit sometimes crazy in a sense that they have the word global variables and globals, and then there is globals, I always say. In WinDev, there is what we call the application level globals, and then you get your actual procedures or Windows global declarations section. And at first it got me confused because when we entered the first window when I developed it, I thought it was globals and globals from the other development environment. Meantime, it's a local variable or declarations to the window or the procedure, which I'll show you now. That was a gotcha for me. I don't know if somebody else fell for that, but I thought I'll put it out there. So you get what we call a project level globals and then the window level programs, which I'll show you now. And then declaring variables. So where do we do it? It's slightly different in WinDev from the previous development environment, which I come from as Clarion. You tend to have a designated area, which is called the data section, and you declare it all there. WinDev is slightly different. You can put it in the middle of nowhere in your code, declare a variable. And it also depends where you declare it, where the scope of that variable is, which I'll get into now in the hello world. Then mapping. What I call mapping is who's calling who and which procedures are calling what procedures. The development environment where I come from, you have to map your calling procedures and the hierarchy kind of thing, which call the one next to the next one. And if you didn't map it out, it will say, hang on, who are you calling where? In WinDev, it doesn't matter. There's no worry about mapping or telling or declaring which function or window you're going to call next. You just call it basically. Because that comes a bit of a problem. You end up having it all in the same directory, and you need to create some order, which we'll go into it now also. Then lastly, we're going to just go into how to rename your project and changing the folder location and how to back up your project and then storing it, which becomes quite interesting. Especially in the early days when I started playing around, you end up making a mess up of a mess up, and you want to make a copy without messing up the previous one, without going into source control management. If you don't want to go into that in the early days, you want to first just mess around. So that becomes quite handy to know how to do that. Okay, I'm going to leave the questions just now. Let's do the over here. Then when you get into there, we're talking about getting back to the part where we talking about the globals and that. At this level over here is a project, and if you right click there, you got some code sitting here. And this is what I call the real global declaration part. So if I go and do something like example, hello world variable is a string, and we say equal hello.
Don't forget the L in the world.
Oh yeah. And there you go. And there it automatically the prefixing of the what they call the prefix of the variable.
From the charter, huh?
What do you call it again? Yeah, the chart, programming chart. I hit the blank here. So that's what we call then a global variable, and that is available anywhere in the application.
Well,
Then
you just said application, but you opened up a project, so I'm confused. Isn't application like a collection of projects, or?
yeah, collection. Sorry, yes, that's collection for this particular project or exe what you're developing here.
Okay.
Okay, right. Mixing up my terminologies, yeah. Okay, now the next stage is we want to develop a window which is going to say hello world, and you stand on the Windows section because you want to develop create a window now, and you stand on that. You can right click it there and you create a new window. Alternatively, you hit the button on the top corner and it pops up this little ring thing, and you say a window over here. It's either or, you can choose which way you want to go about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a blank one at the moment and click OK, and then it creates the first window. And obviously, depending on your settings of your project, it would have made this screen exactly the size you asked in the beginning. If you look at the bottom right corner, 800 by 600 to keep in mind, which is quite handy, which it keeps you that you stay in your size. You can always make it smaller and bigger as you want, but which is quite handy if you create a new one. Just remember, if you set in your project, it will default to that size. Right, next stage, we're going to just create a static control. You go to the creation, and then you go to static, and you dump it down here, and we can look at the 8 tabs, and we're going to say, let's call it hello world static. Over here, I'm just going to put hello just for now, and click OK. The nice thing about WinDev, you can actually start testing this now already without doing any much more by going go. Once you hit the go button, oh yes, of course you have to save it first. Let me just cancel that here, and you just save, and you title the element. You want to make it win hello, say example. Okay, that's the title of the element, and that's the element name on the hard drive itself. And there you go. If you go to the tabs here, let's go put a heading on a hello world, just make it a little bit different, that you can see where it comes. That is over there. I'm going to come back to that now. Like I say, we've already got a little application, a little project here, which will start running by just clicking this button. There you go. And you've tested it and you've started running it. And in the simplest thing, this is a hello world. There you go. First little application done. Now, let's go a little bit fancier. We don't just want to use this X button here, so we're going to go say K button, and we drop it down here. And as you can see, because of the style I chose, it automatically does it, applies to it. So I'm going to call this a close button, and there you go. And the action you want to take, you say close the window. No code needed. There you go. You can test it again, run it. Oh, nice. Close it. There you go. End of your application running. Now let's get a little bit more serious about it. We're going to take this hello world and look at it from a point of view, all the different tabs. You get in WinDev, they call it the 8-tab system, and where you set up nearly anything and everything that you do with each control in the window, and it gets quite fancy when you go to tables and etc. But let's just stick with a hello world now, with a static one. So over here you can talk about, earlier we talked about the styles. Let's just get to that quickly. Here we chose the simple style, and once again you have chosen the simple style, and you can see it by looking at over here. Now if you go look, I've chosen Marella style, so if you take that out you can see this is all in that collection of styles, that template style collection that you've picked. This is all ready for you just to choose and pick and choose. If you untick this one and you just tick that one, you can see what have you used in this project alone. At the moment there's none, there's just the current one. Okay, so you can end up changing this static look and feel of this button, and that's what I'm suggesting. Stick to this, because once you get the hang of it and you change your style right across the whole project, anyone would you say your static is red, it will then make red. And say tomorrow you don't like the red, you can actually change it in your project. If you let me just go show you here. You can actually go to the project description. Is it over here? Style, and then you can then end up changing this whole template. It's not over here. Let's just see where you change this template. Project styles. Where's the styles again? I'm not quite used to the 18 yet. Anybody know where the styles are? This. Charter. Oh. Okay, there. Oh, over here, then you can end up changing it. Styles is a bit different. You end up having a separate application to change it directly. But if you make your own, then you can apply it by just choosing your own new one. Like example, we've created our own over here somewhere, and then you can reapply it by choosing, say, this one, and then reapply it across the board, and all your screens change accordingly. That's how quick it is. But we won't go into the how to change a style today. You create a new project for that to change that. It's in the user manuals. But in just to see how quickly it's changed, as you can see, by just applying the different style sheet. Okay, now you want to put some code. Let's change the code behind it, and that's where I was talking about. Let's just go back to this is where we call the global variables, and when you get to the procedure level, we've got over here the window, and if you right click on it and say code or push the F2 button, you get into the code. And here again they say global, and this is global just the procedure. So I'm going to make another one, local hello world is string equals local hello. So the one we've got is global. Let's go and see over here. Let's call it global, that we know you can follow through on it. That's a global, and this is the local over here. The string itself is declared as hello, but we can then go to the code and say, let's reassign a new one. So if you say hello world equals, then hello world, and you take the global one, okay, and you set it there, and you save it. As you can see, your initial is hello, but if you run the program, guess what? It's hello world. Once again, we can resize this a little bit that we can see more of it. And that's how quickly you can test your project as you go along. As you can see, now it's hello world taken from the global variable. Now let's just go and change it just for intersect to the local one. Let me just quickly go and see what we call it, local hello world, okay? And we go and say change it to local hello world, and you run it again, and there you go, pops your uncle. Hello world is now local. Now this is very interesting, because if you declared it on the window itself, that variable is available to anywhere in this window. And if you create a new window, that variable, which is local hello world, is not available to any other window or procedure. Whereas if you declare it on the project level, it is available right across your project. Okay. And that's the declaring of variables. Now we were talking about also who's calling who, and you can imagine yourself if you end up having a whole lot of windows declared over here, it becomes kind of messy over here. What you can do is they can create a custom folder, and then you can say over here subscriber, as example, subscriber maintenance. So anything to do with subscriber maintenance, you can put all those windows in there. So what we can do is automatically drag that one into the subscriber maintenance section. Then it's in there. And you can create another window, a new folder, and say setup routines, or whatever you want to call it. And you end up putting all the setup routines in there. And that's where all the windows that get declared. And you get the same story with reports. When you declare reports, it goes in here. And then any local procedures you want to have here. So you can create collections of local procedures and get called by any of these other windows or any other procedures. So that's how you create a bit of order when you've got more than one screen. At the same time over here, your what I wanted to say, the structure is then helping you to keep a collection of different procedures together, and you can do the same as classes and procedures. You can create a new set of procedures, and we can call it, let's say example, password protection procedures. Okay, and that's where then all these procedures get then saved in here. You have to save it first to before it shows up here. And then you put all the procedures associated with your password protection of your software. So hopefully that makes a bit of understanding. Now to rename your project, it's quite simple. If you don't like the name of the project, you go to the project section, go to description, and you can say, I don't want to call it that anymore, because when you compile it, let's compile it first. You compile it by choosing that, and the compilation is finished. And let's just open up the and then there's your hello world. Just to come a bit over here, all your little bits and pieces are put into this folder here, and the exes gets developed and compiled into there. Let's just do that quickly. Generate. Recompile and generate, resynchronize, is that when you do changes to your dictionary like that, you need to do it once in a while just to get everything in sync. If things are going a little bit weird in PcSoft in the sense that you know you've put a new field somewhere and it's not showing up, etc., hit that button. That usually sorts your problem out. Now to generate the project, we're going to have to declare which is your first window. Of course, you need an entry point to your project. Let's choose that one. And then you go and compile it. And once again, you can change the hello world just to say hello instead of the other one. So you don't have to be stuck with the project name. You can change your executable. If it's a version 1, you can put it as version 1 here, for example. Whatever you want to put the name there. Choose your icon, what you want to have the exe to show. I'm going to just fly through this. We can go into that later into more detail. You can put your company details, you sign it if you need to, and here you put your release version number, and I'm not going to go into that too much there, and it's done. Then it will compile your project, and you can then run it, or just go end, and where did I put the folder? And there you go. And this is what you need to distribute your project for. This is all what you need to send to your client in the exe folder. And if you run that, now you've got it. Oh, okay. I'll by default put a splash screen on it.
Is all your code in the hello exe or in the DLLs? Or is that their DLL? That's their DLLs, right?
That's the DLLs. That's the DLLs what you got. You've got an option when you compile this, when you generate it. Content, which one is it? Let me just go through this. It's one of these. Yeah, include main library.
Kind of like a local compile in Clarion, right?
Yes, yes. Then it puts it all in there. But I've noticed, even though you say compile it all in there, once you run it, it kind of extracts it out and puts it separately.
Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
So, in the whole world of, this is like one simple exe, do you have multi-DLL applications too, or that concept's not the same in Win?
No, I haven't got that route. I don't even think WinDev has got that kind of thing. I'm not too sure. That is a good question, actually. I've not really split mine up into DLLs. I don't think WinDev does that kind of thing.
On the DLL
although
exe,
I've split it up to different.
on the DLL exe,
Yes.
I think the window you were looking at refers to WinDev .wdls, I think they are. And then later on in the setup of the executable, there's a question about putting all of the DLLs into the exe or having them separately. And it's very confusing. It's back to the Fringlish thing.
Yeah. You can compile it that all these DLLs is part of the exe. But I've noticed that in the past, I haven't played around too much with it. Once you run it the first time, it extracts itself and puts it separately into the folder.
Yes.
So it looks like at first one exe, but as soon as you run it the first time, it ends up extracting it. I think this one is like that. Let me just do that. I'm not too sure. Yeah, that's exactly what it does. That's what happens. Yeah.
Yep.
I know it's picking up.
No, yeah, you're finding the DLLs that are on your machine.
Yeah, it's being picked up now. But there is, in the generation, you can compile it that it's all in one. But at the moment, it's picking up through a redirection.
What Brian was saying is, to my question, he says WinDev does use separate DLLs as well, but he believes they are called WDLSs.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's not DLLs as we know it. I don't think it has, does it have a way of doing a DLL per se? I don't think so. I think, if I remember correctly, I've read somewhere in the documentation that you end up compiling it as the WDLSs or something, and then you have to use one of their DLLs to call all their functionalities, if I remember correctly.
Okay, but I was just wondering, like in like Clarion, you kind of have an application. You said make this a DLL, make this a DLL. I was just wondering if you do that as applications or as projects, or you don't worry about it. It does it itself.
At the moment, I have not worried about it because it does it very nicely, and I haven't run into that wall of complexity that it doesn't just work. With the WDL or whatever.
And it seems like if you take a project and you build it and you compile it and you test it, it's kind of like, you don't really need separate, applications to do faster compiles, right? Because it kind of does it anyway, or?
Yeah, it seems to be, I like I say, we understand it that everything runs through these WDLSs, and itself is kind of a DLL. If you want to use it outside WinDev, they have a DLL which you can call it from .NET or Clarion or whatever, and address your WDLSs, if I remember correctly on the documentation. I haven't done it yet myself, but I was just reading it some time back about it, that's the way you would do it. So indirectly, you don't have DLLs per se, but the WDLSs is their DLLs basically. So you don't have that issue of worrying about breaking up your application and making sure that it doesn't get a problem.
Yeah, Brian says he does it kind of like you because he hasn't had to break it up, but he says if you did, you could break it up in separate modules, just like in Clarion.
Yeah. And if you get complicated, you like what Andy and them does, you end up making controls and external components and that kind of thing.
Cool.
Just lastly, just renaming your project, it's not a problem. A lot of people once in a while want to rename it. You can rename it quite easily. You just go to the description and you end up renaming it there. Then it will rename the project name, because what's over here has got nothing to do with the end compilers, because when you go and generate, it will ask you over here what the exe will be. So don't get confused that the project name is your end exe. So you can do it separately no problem. Then the other question sometimes in the beginning stages you end up messing around so much that you got copies and you want to make a copy of it without using source control, etc. If you don't have a source control setup. It's quite easy with WinDev. There's nothing rocket science on it. All you do is go to your project and you can literally do a copy of this whole folder if you don't use external components and all the fancy stuff. If everything is in here, it's there. You just copy it or rename it. The only thing what happens is when you close this project up, close the project, and you get to this window over here, if it's not there anymore, what happens is, let's just, I think it won't allow me to rename. So let's say we change the folder name because we didn't like the folder name, Hello Worlds, or you want to make a copy, you can make a copy. But when next time you come here, the only problem what happens is when you click on it, it kind of disappears and says, what? It's not there. It doesn't tell you it couldn't find it or anything. It just kind of jumps out of there. What you do is just open the project, go back up there to your stuff, and you find it, open it, and then you just double click on it and you're back in again. As easy as that. The other way to do it, people sometimes want to share stuff and they're worried about that and get all the stuff, is through tools, and you save the project over here and you click next and you can choose what you want to all back up. And usually the default is fine, and you can say next, you create a compressed, and then you go and you have backed up your whole project, and it's done if you're not using source control. And there you go. It's done for you. Then this you can then give it to Arnold or whoever you want to, and he in turn in his side comes back here and tools and restore. Okay, the reason why I'm showing this is when you start using source control, it's not a big issue, but sometimes back in a while you want to send the project to somebody else to have a look at it, or you find a bug in the system if you think there's one and you want to give an example to PcSoft. That's the way I would do it, and then send it off to them. And I think that is my whole spiel for today. Any questions?
That was good. I mean, you know, little at a time helps a lot. Hal has a question, I think. Hal, oh, he's gone. Just unmute your mic and go ahead and ask your question. There you go.
Okay, question. Now, I'm not necessarily confused. I am confused on it. The relationship between an application, a project, and actual executable programs. Whereas my main product that I'll be coming out with is, say, product X. And product X, from what I understand, will be a collection of various projects. Those projects could be general ledger, accounts payable, payroll, order entry, blah, blah. Yes. Then under each one of those projects, we have individual programs that execute to complete that particular project. So is that the hierarchical relationship basically in a total product?
Yes. What you can do is, I've got exactly that kind of situation happening in one of the others. I've got here this particular one I'm using as a registration system. I've put the analyst on the one side. Then I said, okay, the registration, that's a client side, and this is my server side, which is the SOAP services. And I've just did 3 different folders here. And then what you can do is refer inside WinDev over here in the project. If I open up, let's just get back, come on mouse. Let's just open up. Let's take that one. When you go to the project, and you go to the description, you can go to the analyst and then refer it to that particular folder and say, there it is, I'm going to look at that project's analyst if you're using the same database. And that's how I would do it. So you would then look at that through this one over here, for example. So you can define it in one place and have more than one folder describing your application with its different projects. So, like example you said, you've got different sections and each one is on exe, which is ideal to do it that way. Does it make sense?
Yeah, sort
Hal,
of.
what's that?
Yeah, well.
Sort of. The problem is once you see it, it's actually quite simple. It's not so difficult to get these things in different sections. In the beginning stages, it used to kind of got me my gut, because in a sense it creates its own analyst in here, but in this case, because I'm pointing over there, it doesn't. This particular one, it created its own because I've got another analyst on its inside here, which is I'm also referring to. But you create different folders for different parts of it. The other way you can do it is, for example, if you want to, you can say a project and you create a new folder, which I've done before, and I say my accounting system, for example, over here. And when you create your projects, you end up, instead of putting it all three over here, you end up creating it inside the project itself. So let's just do that quickly. Just close this project. So example, I say create project, new window, and then I say my accounts receivable, for example. And then you go and change this to the folder we just created. Where is it? My accounting system. All right. Then what happens is my projects, my accounting system, my accounts receivable section. Then you end up creating your project. Then the next one is accounts payable, and then it will be still my accounting system. But once you create this, just example, I'll show you. I'm just going to fly through it. I'm going to just I don't want to use a database. Just quickly just create a project. When you go back in here, you'll see it automatically created the subdirectory, and in there it started putting all its stuff. So the next one, you will then create my accounts payable, and then you put it all there. That's another nice way of putting it. And PcSoft ID is not fussy about it, as long as you have designated a folder for it, and it's quite happy with that then. Does it help you?
Hal, are you good with that?
You still
yeah,
muted?
he's muted.
This is Stuart. I would delve into that question a little bit further because I've struggled with that exact same thing. You've created my accounts receivable. Let's say you're going to have 30 or 40 menu picks under my accounts receivable. So are you better off to have 30 or 40 projects to represent an EXE for each menu pick? Or are you better off to have one project and then use the, I forget the exact term they use, but the multiple generation to generate multiple EXEs that way? Or are you better off to just have one giant EXE that represents all of my accounts receivable? And from what I can tell, you can kind of do any of those according to your choice. But it's it's kind of the question. Well, what's the best choice, or at least what are the considerations in terms of the pros and cons?
Okay. Let me, from my point of view, I'm saying from my point of view because everybody's got his own viewpoints. I think the old story when it comes to this kind of thing, when you get to a bigger project. In other development languages, I would chop it into different DLLs, etc. Because of the fact that it just was painfully difficult to compile all the functionality into one. You just have it just became a monster. But this particular one, I've actually, so far, I have not split it up because of the simple fact it just the fact that you can test and diagnose window by window and debug and do things so much easier. It doesn't become an issue anymore as such. And because it uses its own kind of DLLs, what that WDSL, whatever you want to call it, can't remember the abbreviation now. You've got, in a sense, DLLs on the fly kind of thing without you doing anything about it. And I've not found any issue from a maintenance point of view because of simple fact, I could, like I say, go to any particular window and test it and play around with it and mess around with it. And even if you have to pass parameters, it's not an issue because sometimes you say, oh, well, I have to have all these bits and pieces to make it work. Even then, it's not really an issue. You can pass the parameters. It is just create a, just for the sake of it, just to show you. Blank window. Test. I'll just show you just very quickly from a point of view. If you got procedure when test param 1, param 2, and there you go. You've got now two parameters. Test. Okay, so if I look at over here as when test 1, 2, I'm going to just quickly show you when you do the test on that static. I'm not going to even change that. Param 1, save that, and st. And we usually, the reason why I ended up splitting in the past is more because of the fact that it became a monster to do the test cycle. In this environment, it's not a monster to do the test environment, testing. So for me, the biggest reason why I would have split the application up is because of the time it took me to do a test cycle. Now it's not an issue. If I were to test this screen on its own, I just hit the go button and off it goes. It says, okay, what parameters you want here? I say, this is going to be AAA, and this one's going to be say hello. Whatever you want to put in there, and then say go. And there it starts. There's AA and hello. I've tested this procedure. I'm happy with it. And it's as quick as that. If I've got 1,000 procedures or just this one window, it's about this speed. And then I close it up. There you go. I've tested this procedure or window. I'm quite happy with it, and I've kind of tested it. And we can go down the route of even testing your classes. Okay, classes in itself, if you create it, it doesn't give you the go button, but there's ways around it even to do that. All I do is I do a local procedure and I call it test, and then I call the class and then run it also the same way. There is no big doodahs about it, and even if you go into the even fancier, you can do test runs which automatically tests all your little procedures, and you can keep adding to the tests. Unit testing kind of thing. So my biggest, that's why I say from my point of view, my biggest issue in the past was always from the point of view, how quickly could I do my test cycle on any project? And that's the reason why I ended up splitting it up, because the compile and test cycle was far too long. In this case, it's not an issue anymore. And because WinDev itself does these equivalent DLLs, I don't have the problem anymore. It just does it and works. So when I do the final compile for the whole product, if it takes a minute longer, I don't care, because I've saved all those minutes in just through the test cycles, what I saved.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
I've yet to be unhappy about the size of it. The only time when it kind of gets a little bit is when you load it up in the beginning, but even then with 18 it's a lot better. They seem to have done something that makes it quicker. And also when you save it at the end, if you've got a lot of windows, it takes a little longer. But otherwise, I don't foresee me breaking up into different DLLs or having an issue with that. Unless somebody else has got bigger projects than I've got, which is quite possible, and they've seen other issues, but I haven't seen any issues yet.
Yeah, can you put a little scope, like how many windows are in your typical project that you have all combined?
I've got the one I'm still busy with. It's about 1,000 plus. About there's quite a bit there. I'm not too sure exactly how much. What I've done is, like I said, I created different folders here, which group them together, like all your setup menu kind of things. It goes into the one little folder, etc. And you can have folders within folders, like, and then just put them collectively together, which makes this list a bit shorter. Otherwise, you've got this whole long list down the side here. Whereas if you've got folders, you end up opening the folder and getting to what you want quite quicker. But even though I've got so many windows, and if you talk about the classes and procedures, geez, I don't even want to talk about that. That's gone out of hand in a way, because sometimes I have to think twice what I've done there, because that's how much code is there. But the point is, when I'm opening the one particular section, it's very fast, and it's not hampered by the fact that you've got 1,000 or 2,000. I don't even think if you've got 10,000 makes any difference. The only time when I see the difference is in compilation time, when you open it and closing the project. But because the fact that my test cycles are so quick, whereas before I would have had 5 or 7 minute compilation time to do a test, for me, that minute or two to open it, it's not a train smash anymore. And even 18 has gone even faster to open up.
Yeah, I just love what you're talking about, because I've done Windows and stuff that, because you can quickly go in, test, debug, everything. You don't even know that there's other stuff in this application.
Yeah. The other thing, just coming to it, what's nice about it, which Glenn touched on earlier, if you look at this particular one, it's not a big one, but just to get the point across, from a compilation point of view, you use source control. It becomes very nice. Like this main one, we're using planes here. Let's check this out quickly. And see how quickly it loads up. And there's quite a few windows here. And this is plane 0. And when you go, that's plane 2, and then 1 and 2. In this case, we only use 1 and 2. But the point is, this is what we call the one window. But on plane 2 is what we call an internal window. And I'm swapping this internal window out with all these different other windows. The browse box window, this IW, if you know the programming chart, that means internal window. Which is nice about it, this is on its code, standing on its own. And even though this is part of the main window, where in other programming languages you had to kind of put everything on the main one and create a wizard or something like that to get the tab and hide the table away, etc. Here I can do the test on this particular one window on its own, even though it's part of the main window, which is this one over here. Eventually gets pulled in here by changing the plane to number 2 and then reassigning the source window, which is in browse box, the internal window. So what happens is, instead of making this window horrendously complicated with 100 different little tabs or windows or millions of planes, I've just got 2 planes, because this one is a very, this has to always be there, so the code is loaded and the browser is loaded and I don't have to worry about it. It just is there. And then plane 2, I swap out continuously the internal windows with the outbox and the sendbox and the list and the group and the templates and the setup, etc., etc., etc. And each one on its own. For example, there's internal security setup. This is a setup just to do the modem and the user group. And all the code is in here. And I can go and do a test on it, run it, and off you go. And there's, oops, it will crash because I didn't choose element, I think. I have to pass a parameter, and I don't think I've got a proper database here behind it. I think it's number 1. No, I'm missing something here. But okay, I don't have the database here. I have a database, but okay, I'm not going to go into it. But the point is, I can test this particular one on its own without any hassles, like this browser. Let me just see if the browser one can go on its own.
Well, you see Glenn do it all the time, in his example apps.
Yeah. And then you can choose and chop and change, and then you do all these little pieces, yet it's part of a big screen with multiple different options on it. And it's just very quick to test things.
Yeah, Brian reads.
And that's why the thought of me splitting it up hasn't come across my mind yet. And I spoke to a few other WinDev developers, and they've got the same kind of feeling on that. Why bother?
Yeah, Brian basically says he has 300 plus windows in a single app and no difference in speed from 10 to 300 windows.
Yeah. I've got about 1,100 or 1,200, just over 1,000, I remember. And then besides the windows, I'm talking about you can have procedures. Like example, this is all procedures. Where in a like Clarion environment, this would be in your tree of all the different procedures, and that's this one, and then this is the SMS processes, all different procedures, and that's just in a sense would have been a procedure in another language which you had to break up into DLLs, and I haven't bothered. It just works.
So I guess that Project Explorer, if you organize it properly, you can find things easily. Yes. Otherwise, it seems like it could be a headache.
Yeah, that's the mindset which I think we all sit with, because you come from another environment, and you kind of, that's why I said at the beginning, you want to force your way to use the mindset that you've learned from other IDEs, and you want to try and implement it here. Yet, it's like, I always say, it's like climbing into a motorbike and expect it to work like a car. You realize the fact that you're climbing on a motorbike, and it's going to be different. Not a car. The gears are different, everything is different, yet it still takes you from A to B and can do 100 kilometers per hour. But the point is, just realize there is different ways of doing it, and sometimes when you get the gist of it, how it's done, and many a times I've seen in the chat channel, even myself, I'll say, damn, this is good. You just get excited about it because it's just so easy to do it. If I look at my previous development environment and I wanted to do a SOAP service, it was like a mission to get something done. I've done some SOAP services the last 3 weeks, and I look at it and I say, darn it, it's so easy. You just drag the framework across it, and it just creates it all there. It's there. You just call it. It's just amazingly simple. And if you see the amount of code I've really dumped into it, it's scary.
Scary good, though.
Yeah, scary good. and that's what I'm trying to bring across, and that's why I want to break it down in the hope that you just see the basics first, and then hopefully once you get the hang of how to maneuver around and do a window, do this, do that, then you start fancy, because as you get the first basics done, you all of a sudden realize it's not that much different in the sense of making the windows, making the database connection, etc. Where the niceties of WinDev comes is how certain functionalities and things which is just there and it just works, and how everything's put together neatly, that the IDE kind of gives to you if you want to work with it in its framework. The problem is we tend to think still the old way, and you try and do everything yourself, whereas many times there's functions and functionality in WinDev which is just there and it works. Okay. Any
I
other
have a
questions?
question in your Windows. You know, it was easy for you to just drop something on and then you go define it and you can go to your F2 and do all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? Um,
Yeah.
in the other environment, there's like a source editor. Is this all the Windows stuff here? Is that like in a black box, or when you drop all the stuff, or actually can you see it rendered in source code?
Okay.
Like this screen. Yeah.
That's where the yeah, like that's where the difference comes in. It's kind of a black box. At the same time, I don't see it as a black box because um, anything on this element or this drop-down box and etc. you can change and program using different properties. Um, that in itself is another story. We can have
Another webinar.
a chat about this. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, you can push F2 and everything related to this window, like example the setup of the window and the initialization. Whenever something gets modified on a screen, it's all there. And what's nice about it, it's like callbacks, which triggers those different points, and you can write code in that particular one. So if you go to, say, example, this button, you will see all the functionality on this button. So there's initialization. It's when you click the insert button. If this is not enough, you can go down to the bottom here and click more processes, and that's all the other processes you can activate. For example, if you want to have, if you entry of a rollover. So if you go roll over there, so you click on that. I have to book it out first. Source code, source control.
Question?
So that's your events there. That it's kind of like the embed points in the other language. Yeah.
Yes. So as soon as you bring the mouse in into the rollover, then there you go. If you don't want it, you just leave it off and keep it simple. It's got a lot more functionality, as you can see, moving, resizing. Even if you resize the button, you've got a callback function or embed point as in the previous IDE, which you can put code in. So if you don't need it, it's very simple. The most common embed points, let's call it, or callback points, is really there. But if you don't, if you need more, you can hover down here. They put the other ones, which is very popular. These three is already there because it's grayed out more or less, but the ones in color still is not there. So if you double click right, if you want to put something on the double click right, you click on it and puts it in, or you can go over here and then tick the box there.
Hal has a question, I think.
Yes, I had to depart for a few minutes for a nature call, and maybe I missed something. But what I wanted to know is that from our basic point of view, looking at this real introductory, would it be reasonable for a company to basically build a default framework so that when we selected a window for a new program, it's already got on it in the appropriate places defined by whatever, add, browse, change, delete, remove, quit, next, mix margarita, go home, whatever. All this is on the pane, on the window itself, so that we bring in this new window, we're going to do accounts, we're doing vendor maintenance. Then all we've got to do then is associate it with a particular table in the database itself, populate this thing, go down to where it says next and associate the appropriate H file with the next command, and ding dong, we're ready to roll.
Yeah, that's like I say, if you start really digging into the idea of the thing, it gives and gives. Here's an example. In this example, I don't use it because the windows are so different from each other. We don't really have too much of the same. So you can define a new template window here. Let me just close this project because otherwise the source control keeps kicking in here. See, that's what I mean. It takes a longer while, but otherwise I'm not too bothered about it. Where's the hello world? I'm going to go quickly through this. Like I say, there's a new template. You can then choose your default one and you put it in, and this is your window template. So if you go and say 1, 2 button, let's say this is your insert, change, delete, insert, and so forth. I'm not going to go too much trouble, but just to give you the idea. And so delete. And you can put code behind it, whatever you want to do. And if you listen to Andy's and Pete's open source projects, we'll get a lot of ideas for that. Right, so there's your template. You can save it now. I'll just have to call this, let's call this template CRUD buttons.
But we can make all the styling changes to the button where instead of being square, they can be round, and they could be 3D looking, they could be whatever, and you get all this stuff together and save this as a...
Yeah, you got a heading title, yeah, and all that kind of thing. You put it all in there.
And then save it, and next time you want to use one of these things, you just bring it up. There it is.
Yes.
Yeah, but is this a two-way template, or is it just to get you started?
No, what's interesting, let me show you. Maybe that's better. Open it, window, template, and you say base it, that template, there you go.
Excellent.
Now, notice it hasn't got that yellow bar on top. So if you go and say, I'm going to put there static and another image, I'm just going to dump it there and then save it, and we call it test. Right. So you've got it there. Now you go back later on and say, I want to change all the looking. You go back to the one, and let's say, just for the hell of it, I'm not going to call it insert anymore, add, just for the hell of it. And you say, now I don't like the word delete,
Remove.
I'm going to make it remove. Whatever. You can also change the styling. You can, you can even change the styling on it, and you say, okay, I want this button there, just for argument's sake, and you assign it there. There you go. Once you've got it there, you go back to this one, and if you want to do recompile the project, where is the recompile?
It picks it up, huh?
I can't remember if it's there or no. What you can do is go over here. Where is it now? Display window, templates. List of templates used. You go there, and you'll see there's a legend saying crossed out. It's no more the same.
That's an override, huh?
Click on there. Yeah, that means it doesn't automatically just indiscriminately apply, because you might have an issue. You might have used it, but you don't want to use it anymore. So it's your choice then to go and change it. But if you go in there, you can tick all the boxes you want to update, and you go and say go, and they're done.
Well, that's excellent, because I've got a lot in my particular application. We have lots of tables that need to be populated with pre-processed data, like the states of the union, types of product, blah, 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 that's going to be used by other programs. But the confounded window basically is almost static. The only thing you have to worry about is when you put your browser form, or you actually form on the inside of this template, that you don't possibly overwrite some of the existing controls.
Yes. Yes. Just to give another one, I could have used a table. Let's put a table here. About programming. I'm going to just do a very quick nasty one again.
By the way,
once again,
this is a whole series, so we don't have to get all the questions asked today, right?
Yeah. It's true. And then you say resize this one, and then resizes. This is what we call let me just put it nicely. Then you say resize. This is the other one. If you don't want to use a window itself, you might be wanting to look at the control template. Okay. Then the control template, you put it down, and once again, you can say this one. Let's up button. I'm just using another name. And this one be say down button for the hell of it. spell down. And there you go. There you save it. Up, down. And this is what we call control templates again. When you come to this window which we just created again, test window, you can then go and say creation. Where's control template? There we go. Control template, up down button. You choose it and you bump it down. There you go. Once again, you'll see. If you look at this ones over here, just have a quick look just to be knowledgeable about that, is that you've got a blue border around here. Here you also got a blue border, but take a note. There's a yellow little button in the corner, dot, which tells you this
Part of
is
a template,
a
right?
template, part of a template. Right. So if you go there, you'll see if you want to go and change and put code onto that button, you'll see it's grayed out. So the code will come from, let's go back here. Let's say, I'm going to just put a do something, just that you can see. I'm not going to put code now in. Pretend that's code. And if you go over here and you go right click on that and you put code. Okay, did it on the other one then. Okay. Okay, where did I put the code in? Okay, maybe it wants some code. Let's say up value is int equals 1, for example, just for argument's sake. Save it and then go back here. I know what I forgot to do. Right click, update from the control template. Remember, at the moment it's not updated, so it's not showing the code. So if you want to update it, you just update the template. And now when you go into it, it should show the code now. There it is.
Is there a global way of doing that? Like, say, apply this to all the places? Because like Claire, when I do the template,
sure
I want it
is,
everywhere.
I haven't. Yeah, there is a place. I think when you actually recompile a certain
This is
project,
really cool. I like this. This is nice. Brian says don't forget to save and synchronize. So maybe when you do your save and synchronize, can you say apply it to all?
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm sure. Home, save. Oh, okay, it doesn't say. I don't see a save and synchronize. It might be. I can't think of it. Save, synchronize, controls. Somewhere it should be. I remember there is a place, but I'm not. Like I said, there's 18. I've just been using it recently a little bit, and I'm still a bit lost.
So if you're in projects tab there, the little projects tab, would it be in there? Yeah, there.
Oh, there we go. Synchronize. There we go. Synchronize templates. There we go.
That would synchronize it to all of it, I would imagine, huh? So you don't have to go one at a time.
Yes, there you go. Let's just do this, just to test it out, the theory. Down value is int equals say 2, just for argument's sake, and then save it.
Oh, Brian says it will sync. Let's see. In referring to his code change in a template, it will synchronize if you set it to do that automatically. It's an option setting.
Okay. You just see, because we've just said to resynchronize everything. Code. Yes, it did. There you go. When you compile and resynchronize, you have to choose that one. Then it will do. And all the projects already refreshed. Okay, it's already done. If it tells you if it's up to date.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it.
You know, hey, you're all up to square one. You don't have to worry about it. That's actually nice. Then, just to kind of argument's sake, now you're going to ask, but I don't like this code. I might just change my mind. What you do is right-click and then say,
you can override,
overload the control.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you'll see, if you look at the color, it's changed to a bluish kind of color, no more yellowish. Then you can go into it and then go and do a code. And then what you can do is put code before that and after execute ancestor. So if you put something there, it will execute, then it will jump into the brown part and come
kind of like
again.
our before parent and after parent, right?
That's it. That's it. And carry on to it.
And the nice thing I like about this is that you could say, you can comment out execute ancestor, and that means don't even do the.
Yes, if you just don't like the code at all, you just do that. Or take execute ancestor altogether out.
Question.
Oh, good. Well, so you got to save some for your next series.
Oh.
Okay. Anything you guys want to see next? Or hear next?
Yeah, does anybody have any ideas of what they want clarified? Basic stuff so that we're thinking cleanly.
What I like is what we're doing right here, in that we're predefining control functions somewhere else, so that all we've got to do simply is do a small amount of click, and these controls are being moved in, frameworks are being moved in, so that we don't have all this grunt work that's got to be done of add browse checks, name, delete, do this, up, down, etc., etc. So we do this, move in this set, ding dong, we're ready to go. We got the that particular execution done, compile it, and move on.
Right, Hal, and the key word for you on that, once you do this, is indirection.
Okay.
That will, that's going to be a big deal for you then.
Okay. Then also in this thing that he just did with that control, in that we specify some option that we want to go basically get next record, like H-file next, whatever. But what we want to be able to do in this instance, I want next customer. In this one, I want next inventory. So can we do a substitution? Go ahead.
Arnold, that's what Arnold is talking about, indirection.
Okay, we won't cover that today. We won't cover that today.
We'll cover it next week.
Well, the thing is, go through the webinar list. There's some discussion about indirection there. Or if you have Glenn's training, he covers it well too.
I got Glenn's training, but this is really neat stuff. It almost gets one excited.
Yeah, it does. That was the whole idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, if there's anybody wanting to get hold of me on Skype and put your ideas forward, what you would like to see next. Otherwise, I'll do something which I think is next.
And you picked them good so far. So.
Okay.
Stuart, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, the most mystifying thing are the, I don't want to use the word window templates because I don't think that's the right term, but it's style and whatever was the thing right above style in your presentation. I took a run at trying to, create my own environment.
You're talking about the skins?
Yes, skins. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
I took a run at trying to understand that, the relationships of that, how to edit that, and I kind of felt like I just fell right into the pit and never got out of it. So that would be the suggestion I would throw out there.
Okay. Andy or Pete, one of them did stab at that a little bit, but that's in the WebDev side of things, but it's very similar in WinDev also. You might want to look at that webinar.
Okay, thank you.
If it's not good enough, we can always do another stab at it in a different angle.
Yes, do it for us, the beginner's angle.
Okay. All right.
Okay, great.
Hopefully I've kept it simple enough. If I fly too high, let me know, then we'll keep it simple. The idea behind this is to get people who really want to get going from nowhere.
Hey, Brian made a good point here, and I think this would be good. A review of analysis
next week.
because
That's
Yeah,
next week.
because you know, Windows and all that is the UI is important, but having that data dictionary or that analysis correct and having it, you know, we talked about templates, right? So how can the analysis help
Yeah.
us do what Hal wants to do and not work so hard, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'll start with the basic. That's my idea
Yeah.
for next week if there was nothing else missing. But I wanted to leave it on its own because there's quite a bit to be done there.
Okay. So you choose.
Okay.
We'll
This is
talk
so
to you guys
great.
all next week.
This is so great, Arnold. We need to do this 3 times a week.
No, that's so,
I've got a day job,
we
eh?
all have day jobs, Hal. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. And Hal, just start watching more videos. Later, guys. Bye.
Good night. See you. Thanks again.
Cheers. Bye.